So last year, I was sitting in one of the conference sessions at the huge convention, and the speaker rattled off 6 questions about our businesses that we should know the answer to right off the top of our head. And I did not know the answer to most of them, in spite of the fact that I've been a quality manager in a hospital laboratory for 10 out of the last 11 years. How embarrassing. Welcome to the Business Mountain podcast. I'm Ginny Seeley, business strategist and longtime process improvement expert. My husband Joe and I own an appliance service business and a co-working space, so I know firsthand what it takes to juggle growth, leadership, family, and faith all at once. Every week, we climb together with real-world strategy, smart marketing, and practical tech for service-based business owners. Grab your gear, let's climb. Before we get into it, one thing. If you've never taken my hazard quiz, go do that this week. It's 7 questions, it takes about 2 minutes, and it tells you the 3 specific things working against your business right now based on where you actually are, not where somebody assumes you are. You'll find it at outcomeacademy.com/findmycamp. That's Find My Camp, all one word. Well, welcome back, my friend. I'm so glad you're here. Last week, we talked about your numbers at kind of a high level, just basically saying that we needed to know them. And that was one of the things that we were supposed to bring with us on our planning session that we're scheduling before the last quarter of the year. But this week, I kind of want to come back to that and expand on it a little bit. And I want to start by telling you about that moment that made me care about this in a way I kind of hadn't before. I was at the huge convention last year, and it isn't one of our industry conventions like I talked about last week. This was an adjacent industry, and that convention focuses on power washing and Christmas light installation and window washing and things like that. And side note, like I talked about last week, that is one of the best things you can do for yourself as a business owner. Go to that adjacent convention. But anyway, I'll come back to that in a minute. I'm sitting in one of those breakout sessions that they have at conferences, and the topic was knowing your numbers. Fine. I've got a black belt in Lean Six Sigma. I love numbers. I love data. I felt pretty good about myself walking in. And then the speaker started firing off questions at the room. Not rhetorical ones, real ones. The kind that you're supposed to be able to answer out loud if somebody calls on you. What's your current revenue? What systems do you have in place to let that business operate without you? How many leads are you getting a month? Where are your leads coming from? What is your lead to job conversion rate? What is your average ticket on the jobs you're running? And I was sitting there with my pen, and somewhere around the 3rd question, I realized I had a problem because I couldn't really answer most of those. I could probably answer the systems one, but I couldn't just rattle off all those numbers off the top of my head. I'd have to go digging for them. And I didn't know them for any of the businesses. I didn't know them for Cavalry. I didn't know them for Highland. And I didn't know them for Outcome Academy. I could have given you a ballpark on the revenue, and I could have told you that we were busy or not busy, but that was about it. And that was really, really embarrassing for me. Now, nobody in the room knew that. Thank God they didn't call on me. I didn't raise my hand because I didn't know the answer. But I want to be honest about that because I think a lot of people might think that they're alone. And so I want you to know, Miss Quality Improvement here on the other side of this podcast, I didn't know the numbers about our own business. And so that embarrassment was a gift to me. And it only happened because I was in a room where nobody knew me and nobody was grading me. And that's kind of the value of going to that conference in an adjacent industry instead of the one where everybody already knows your name. So if I had been in one of the rooms at the conference where everybody knows us, I wouldn't have had the same type of awakening because I might have brushed it off, or they might have called on me and I might have not known the answer and actually been embarrassed in a room. So it was kind of a space where I was safe. And I could really learn that about myself, which was a really big lesson. And so we were measuring things for sure. And coming from the background that I had at the hospital where I was the one in charge of all the KPIs for the laboratory, I was in charge of helping all of our different team members who are in charge of all the different areas of the lab even come up with what to measure. And then I was in charge of helping them figure out how to measure that item, how to report on it. And then we actually reported on it monthly at our quality improvement meetings. And so I had all this great experience about building an impeccable, amazing, flawless quality program. And of course, it wasn't flawless. We always had room to grow and improve things. But if I was being totally honest, last year looked a little different. To be totally fair to myself, last year I was still working full-time for the hospital. So I didn't have the time or the bandwidth to really lean in and develop a quality program for our businesses. But since I've left the hospital last October, this has been something that we've been building with a purpose, really leaning into our quality program and making sure that we have things that we're actually measuring, that we're reporting them out loud in our team meetings every week, that each of our team members has a number that they're responsible for, and that is linked directly to their evaluations, all the things. So this is what today is going to be about, and I'm really excited to kind of invite you into this episode and get to the nitty-gritty of the numbers that we all should be focusing on, and then looking at some of the numbers that are camp specific. And just to reiterate, this podcast is called the Business Mountain Podcast, and it's called that for a reason. We have a framework here at Outcome Academy that we've developed based on the metaphor that your business is like climbing a mountain. And when you climb a mountain like Mount Everest, you don't just run to the top of the mountain, to the summit. You can't do that because you have to acclimatize to each of the different camps. Literally, when you're climbing up a very high mountain like that, you need to give yourself time to adjust to the altitude. You need to plan your camp. You need to have a really good rope team around you. You need to have the right equipment. So there's all these things that we can compare to running a business. And one of the things is the camp structure. So when you're climbing a mountain like Mount Everest, there are various camps along the way that you stop at. You rest, you reassess. Sometimes you go to the camp before your camp to adjust to the oxygen level even a little bit more. And so I'm just going to run through the camps with you just to give you a frame of reference. So base camp in the Business Mountain framework is before you start making any money at all. This is the time that you're dreaming about your business, you're planning everything out, you're getting your licenses in order, you're getting your LLC formed, you're getting your insurance, all the things that you need to do before you start running a business. In Camp 1, you're starting to make money in your business, you're starting to serve customers, but you are literally wearing every single hat in your business. You have no team members, you're delivering the service, you're managing all the money, all the things, you're answering the phone. Once you get to Camp 2, you start building a team. And most importantly, you have at least one other person hired that can actually deliver the service that you're delivering in your business so that you can step away for a short time. Camp 3, you've built your team out to the point where you are starting to develop leaders within your business and managers. You might have many trucks on the road if you are delivering home service. You might have many bookkeepers working in your office if you are delivering bookkeeping service, for example. This is the scaling phase, Camp 3. In Camp 4, you're preparing for your exit and you're getting everything ready to sell your business or transfer it to somebody else. And of course, at the very end of all of this, we have your exit, and that is called the summit. So that is a super quick rundown of the Business Mountain framework. And that is what we use to guide people on their journey up the business mountain. And it is one of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of context about that. So back to what we were talking about at the beginning, our numbers. Let's talk about what's actually going on, because I don't think most business owners avoid their numbers because they're lazy. I don't think that at all, because I'm not lazy. I was just not focused on it. And so that led to that embarrassing moment that I was describing. Here's what I see instead. Most owners are running the business off the bank balance. Is there money in the account? Well, then we must be okay. Is the account looking thin? Then we must be in trouble. We better go sell something. And that's the entire measurement system. And I want you to notice how reactive that is. You're always finding out after the fact. Revenue is a number that most people know in their business. It's the loudest number, and by itself, it kind of tells you really almost nothing in your business. Revenue tells you that something happened. It does not tell you why it happened, which means it can't tell you what to do next. And here's a newsflash. You can have your very best revenue month ever and still be losing money on every single job. That happens more than people think. And then here's the second thing, which is the one nobody really wants to say out loud. Sometimes you could be avoiding your numbers because you're afraid of what they'll say. You've got a suspicion about the profitability on a certain type of job, or about a certain person on your team, or about how much you actually spent on marketing last year. And as long as you don't look, it's not confirmed, and you don't have to worry about it. I understand that. We've all been there, and I'm going to give you a better way to think about it before we're done today. But the biggest reason, honestly, is overwhelm. You go looking for what to track, and you find a list of like 100 metrics, and every single one of them sounds important. And you have no idea which one actually matters for a business your size right now. So you close your laptop, you go answer the phone because the phone is at least a problem you know how to solve. Here's the thing. One of the first principles I learned in process improvement is that you cannot improve what you don't measure. But here's the second half, which almost nobody talks about. You also cannot measure every single thing at once. Not when you're the owner, the estimator, the dispatcher, the person who takes the trash out on Thursday. So the question isn't whether you should track your numbers. Obviously, we all know we need to track our numbers. The question is, which ones do I need to track and in what order? So here at Outcome Academy in the Business Mountain Framework, everything lives in one of three pillars: team, trajectory, and tracking. Team is your people. Trajectory is where you're going and how you're getting there. And tracking is your instrument panel, basically your quality management system. So I want you to think about a real mountain climb for a second. Nobody standing at 22,000 feet guesses their altitude based on how tired their legs feel. They carry an altimeter. They carry a GPS. They carry a weather radio. And they check on them at a regular basis. Not when they get nervous, not when they're in trouble, but they want to know what's going on before they get in trouble. The instruments aren't there to make the climb harder. They're there so you can make a decision before a decision makes itself for you. That's what the tracking pillar is. It's not paperwork, and it's not something that's like a nice to-do thing. It's really, really important. It's how you can find out where you are while you still have options. Now, the tracking pillar breaks down into 5 categories. Financial metrics, that's the one everybody thinks of when they think of tracking. They just think of the money, but that's just one of them. The other 4 include marketing metrics, efficiency and operations metrics, customer satisfaction metrics, and then your team and HR metrics. And here's the kind of rule that I want to give you to think about, because this is the part that really makes this doable. I want you to pick 1 or 2 numbers from each of those 5 categories. That's it. 5 to 10 numbers total looked at once a month on a single page. And if that feels overwhelming, then pick 1 from a few of the categories. At this point in time, if you're just getting started, you don't need to have a huge flashy dashboard to look at. You don't need to have a big software to manage your quality program. I just want you to think about 1 page. And let's kind of walk through the ones that I'd start with in each category, and then more importantly, why. So let's look at financial metrics first, because that is the one that everybody thinks of. Let's think about our gross revenue by month. You probably have this already, but I want you looking at it month over month instead of just one annual blur, because the shape of your year is really important information. Then I want you to think about the average dollar per call. You could call it your average ticket, your average client. So basically, I want you to take your revenue for that month and then divide it by the number of jobs you did. That's it. That's the whole calculation. And I want to tell you why this one is my favorite, because it's very fast. It's easy to figure out. Let's say you're running 100 jobs a month and your average ticket is $280. That's a $28,000 month. Now let's say you can get your average ticket to $310. The same 100 jobs, the same team, no new marketing, no new customers, no new trucks. That's an extra $3,000 a month and an extra $36,000 in a year. Most owners, when they want more money, immediately think about getting more customers. More customers is the expensive answer. Average ticket is the cheap one, and you can't work on it if you don't know what it is. Once you've got those two, you can think about adding net profit, because revenue is what you sold and net profit is actually what you kept. And only one of those actually pays you something. Now let's look at marketing metrics. There's a couple numbers here and they go together. First, I want you to really find a way to capture how many leads you got this month and where they came from. That's it. Lead count and lead source. Now, lead source is something we've been tracking from the very beginning of time at Cavalry. And it's as simple as asking somebody, hey, where did you hear about us? I already know what the objection is because it's the same one every single time. Ginny, we're slammed. Nobody has time to ask everybody how they found us and then write it down. I hear you, and I'm telling you, it's a required field on your intake form or a column in a spreadsheet, and it takes about 4 seconds per call. And 90 days of doing that will tell you more about where to spend your money than any marketing consultant can. Because right now, you might be paying for a lead source that isn't actually bringing you any customers, and you don't even know it. And you might have a source that's quietly bringing in your best customers that you're not feeding at all. This is a really important one that you can't make the call on a feeling. You need 90 days of tally marks, and it can be as easy as that. So I'm telling you, this one's important. When I tell people to turn off their ad spend and just see what happens, they get really nervous. This is what gives you an answer about whether that is something you can do and feel good about doing. Okay, category number 3, efficiency of operations metrics. This is where that conference question about conversion rate lives. Start with incoming calls versus jobs scheduled. If 100 people called you this month and you got 62 of them on the schedule, then your booking rate is 62%. Write that down. This one number will tell you something huge. And here's what I mean. If your leads are strong, but your booking rate is low, your problem is not marketing. Your problem is what happens on the phone. More leads are not going to fix that. More leads into a leaky front desk is just a more expensive version of the same problem. Once you've solved that one, I want you to think about adding a first call complete as a number. What that looks like is what percentage of jobs did you finish on the first visit without having to come back for a part or a second trip? Every return trip is windshield time you don't get paid for. That number is your efficiency in one figure. And if you're somebody that's a consultant and you're not actually running a trade business, this could look like getting something done and having all the information that you need before you sit down to work on a client. And how many times you have to go back and get missing information from your client. And just a little side tangent here, the point of collecting all these data points and all this information is not just for the fun of it. The point of collecting all this information is to do something about the things that are broken. So if your first call complete rate is really low, that means that you can do some problem solving to make it better. So in the example that I just gave about somebody who's a consultant, what you really need is to prep your clients to give you all the information in the first conversation so that you can just turn around and give them the final product without having them answer 100 new questions each time. Now let's look at customer satisfaction metrics. One really good one here is recall rate. This would be a callback, a redo, jobs that you have to go back and fix on your own time, on your own money. This is a number nobody wants to track, and it's the one that probably tells you the most information because a recall, a repeat job, something that you have to go back and fix, it's not usually happening with one job. It's usually something that's a repeat issue. It's about training or a process or somebody rushing at 4:30 on a Friday to get home for the weekend. When you start counting recalls, you stop guessing about where your training gaps are. And this one has been super awesome in our office lately. Logan built the most beautiful recall tracker in the whole wide world. It has been really, really helpful. She has been tracking any recalls that we do for our appliance service business, Cavalry Appliance. She's been tracking it by who was responsible for causing the recall, who was the first person that touched that appliance, what was the problem, what kind of appliance was it, and what brand appliance was it. And guess what we learned? We learned that we needed to send our technician to training for refrigerators. And so that's what we're doing. Literally, this week, while I'm recording this, our technician is going away for sealed system training. So those are the kind of really important things you can get when you start examining where your recalls are coming from. It's a training gap. It's not that our technician is lazy. It's not that he doesn't want to do a good job. Of course he does. We only hire people who want to do a really good job. It was a gap in knowledge and in training, and that is something that is absolutely fixable if you know what you need training on. The other interesting thing was certain brands that we might have an issue with. And like I said in the last episode, we are about to pack our whole team up and go to the PSA conference in a few weeks. Well, this is an opportunity to dive in deep on a certain brand of appliance because oftentimes at our industry conferences, we have those specific brands there and they're giving specific training on their items and how to repair them best and what new things are happening in that area. So that was a tangent, but I think it was an important one because it really punctuates that we're not just sitting here collecting data. We're collecting meaningful data so that we can take actions to fill in any of the gaps that we have in our business. Second, for customer satisfaction is the all super important 5-star reviews per month. Not your lifetime total, per month. And I would even say per person. Which one of your service providers is getting the most 5-star reviews? What are they doing that's really special about them to make them earn so many reviews? Sometimes it's as simple as asking the question and asking for the review. A business with 340 reviews and none in the last 5 months, that's telling you something. And it's not the same thing that 340 reviews was telling you. All right, now let's look at our team and HR metrics. A couple here that are important. The first one is turnover. You want to look at this like once a year and look at the actual cost, not just the number of people. When you lose a good technician or a good service provider, it's not that you're just out a paycheck. You're out the recruiting, the ramp up, the mistakes you made on the way up, all the things, all the training, the investment in the uniforms, everything, even the customers who really liked that person. So looking at turnover is a really important thing. If you're having a super high turnover rate, that could point at many different problems that you need to get to the bottom of to make sure that you're not wasting so much money on all of this onboarding and offboarding. The next one that I think is kind of important is lates and absences. You want to look at that monthly, and this kind of matters because people can check out long before they quit. And attendance is usually one of the first things that starts to slip. If you're tracking it, you get a conversation. If you're not tracking it, you might get a resignation letter and a look of surprise. So this is a really interesting one that can kind of be what we call a leading indicator and not a lagging indicator. Okay, now when we start thinking about the camps and some different things that you can layer on. If you're at base camp or camp 1, what I just gave you is not really the starter list. It's the whole job. Do not go add 15 more things because a podcast made you feel behind. That is not the goal here. This podcast is never, ever here to make anybody feel less than or not good enough or behind or anything like that. The really important piece here is to think about what you need to do at your level. I want you to get a few things in place. Look at them every month for a quarter, and then look at what they're telling you, and then pick the next really big thing that you want to start measuring and add that on. Building a really great quality program is a process. Once you're at Camp 2 and those items that we talked about are kind of running without you having to think about it, that's when you can start peppering in the next layer. Customer acquisition cost. So you know what a customer costs you to get. Average collection period. So you know how long you're waiting to get your money. Email list size and open rate if you're building a marketing engine. Side note, Compound Marketing Machine talks about this and gives you all the tools to take this to a new level. Productive days per tech if you're running a field team. And by the time you're at Camp 3 and 4, the shift isn't really about adding more numbers. It's about layering objectives and key results on top of your key process indicators. That your leaders are all owning their own numbers instead of you chasing them down. That's a different episode, and honestly, there's a lot of things that we work through together inside the expedition to get people there. Now, I kind of want to talk about how to do this and actually implement it so it sticks, and it's not just something you do for a short period of time and then forget about it. Or you're like, this sounds like a really good idea. I'll get to it one day, maybe next year. I want you to pick a day. You can pick the first Monday of the month, whatever works for you. Put it on the calendar as a recurring appointment with yourself and treat it like a customer appointment, meaning you don't move it. I want you to take 30 minutes to an hour, look at your numbers, and figure out what they each are. The first month is going to take you a lot longer than that little time period that I just suggested because you're going to be hunting for the numbers and how to find them out. Then it's going to take you a little bit less time the next time. And by the third or fourth time, you're going to figure out a process to hurry up and zip all these numbers out. And you're not going to be surprised anymore. I will tell you, it's really, really smart to record how you're getting these numbers so that you get them the same way every single time. And this is something that we've been just honestly working on recently, making a policy and procedure for how we're collecting all of the numbers in our quality dashboard. For example, if we're looking at recall rate for our technicians, we used to pull it a very tedious way. We would look at every single call when we were doing payroll, and we would look at whether it was a recall or not. And then Joe would manually calculate the number. That is not sustainable. It's exhausting and ridiculous. And we learned really quickly that that was not the best way to do it. What we did was we found a report in ServiceWorks where we can pull all the jobs that we have, and in the job type, it will say whether it's a recall. Then I sort the list by alphabetical order for the client's name, and then I can see which one was the recall and who did the call right before that so that I can give ownership for the recall to the right technician. So I was able to use a report from our system, ServiceWorks, use a quick sorting feature in Excel and get at the answer that took a long time to get in the beginning. Now we have a procedure for how to do that so it's done exactly the same way every single time. We're always comparing apples to apples 1 month to the next month. The other thing that is interesting is our phone platform. It's a little bit cumbersome to get the data that we want. So I figured out the best way to get it, and then I forgot how I did it last time. So even as you're figuring things out, if you can record what you're clicking on, you'll do yourself a big favor for the next month when you're trying to pull it all up so you don't have to recreate the wheel and figure it all out again. So that's just an epiphany I've had recently as I've been really trying to build out exactly how we're finding the numbers that we're tracking. Now, I want to come back to that embarrassment that I felt in that conference room, because just in case that's where you're sitting right now, I just want to acknowledge that. Your numbers are not a report card. They're not a reflection on you as a business owner. They're a map, and a map does not judge you for being lost. A map tells you where you are so you can decide where to go next. You're probably not going to love every one of these numbers the first time you look at them. I didn't. I'm telling you right now, a number you don't like is still infinitely better than a number you don't have, because the number you don't have is running your business anyway. It's just running it without your input. And I watched a very good friend of mine have issues in their business because they weren't monitoring things at all. And then all of a sudden, things spiraled out of control and it became a disaster. This is your way to prevent that. And here's the piece I keep coming back to. I believe we are stewards of what we've been given, not owners, stewards. And you cannot steward something when you refuse to count it. In the parable of the talents, the servant who buried what he had didn't just fail to grow it. He never even looked at it. He put it in the ground because he was afraid, and that fear cost him more than the risk ever would have. Counting what you've been trusted with is not vanity, and it shouldn't be anxiety either. It's faithfulness. It's how you find out what's actually in your hands so you can do something worthy with it. That's the reframe that I want you to take away with you today. That changed how it feels for me, and I hope it changes it for you too. So here's what I want you to do this week. Not all 5 categories. 1, pick one category that made your stomach drop a little bit while I was talking about it today, because that's the one that has something to tell you. Find that number, write it down, put a recurring appointment on your calendar for next month, and do it again. That's the whole assignment. I will see you next week, my friend. I can't wait, and I hope you have a great week. Before you go, here's your next step. Take the free Find Your Camp quiz at outcomeacademy.com/findmycamp. In about 2 minutes, it shows you exactly where you are on the mountain and which path fits you best. Whether that's the 8,000er expedition, the compound marketing machine, or one of our other resources. And if this show is helping you, follow it wherever you listen. Subscribe on YouTube and share it with a business owner who needs it. Thanks for spending this time with me. I'm super grateful for you, and I'll see you in the next episode.